from Timeless Clothiers. Today, well, let me just go into a little foray and then you can decide or maybe guess what I'm talking about. A hat is a statement piece that was once the symbol of only the bold and the eccentric. The popularity of hats has slowly increased over the years as men and women have begun to recognize a hat's usefulness. It is a perfect accessory to deal with the elements, whether it's scorching hot or freezing cold, and it also helps to divert the occasional catastrophe, that is, a bad hair day. Because with a hat, no one needs to know. And also in my case, a bad hair day is every day if you do not have any hair follicles. A stylish accessory that can be worn for most occasions, hats should be embraced. As with all things trendy and stylish, a breakdown is necessary for the different types of hats that are equal parts of timeless, cool, and original.
Start spreading the news. You're leaving today. Tell him, Frank.
I want to be a part of it. New York, New York.
Your vagabond shoes, they are longing to stray
And step around the heart of it. New York, New York. I want to wake up in that city that doesn't sleep
and find your king of the hill, top of the heap. Your small town blues, they're melting away.
I'm gonna make a brand new start of it in old New York.
You always make it there. You make it anywhere.
It's up to you, New York, New York. In New York,
New York,
I want to wake up in that city that doesn't sleep and find I'm king of the hill, top of the list.
you bet. A number one king of the hill. You're a little town road.
They have all melted away, and I'm gonna make a brand new start of it.
Well, what a track to start off the session with, and that is New York. Everybody would recognize that. That's the All Blue Eyes together with Tony Bennett. And of course, that was the Rat Pack, famous for crooning. And yes, hats, which we are going to talk about today. But as usual, hats off to the ladies first. And let's try and do a bit of a heritage track down. So my producers advised as per script that the Edwardian era was the golden age of millinery. Now that name actually sounds very artillery, but millinery is actually the manufacturing of hats. A point for you to note. The ornamentation became ever more elaborate with a cornucopia of flowers, birds, lace, ribbons, bows, feathers, and artificial fruit regularly gracing heads in an opulent display of conspicuous consumption. Hey, who writes this stuff for me? But it's good stuff here. Conspicuous consumption. Please note that. Of course, if you're wearing such a huge display, hat pins were essential to secure these creations to the head. Now, these were lengthy pins, and they were quite useful, I hear, for also discouraging dangerous advances on the street by men. So much so that in some states it was actually proposed to ban this secret weapon. Maybe we have ideas for here for Gauteng, hey guys? All right, and then so during the 1940s, the headscarf turban was popular for women working in factories, of course, to stop the long hair from getting caught in machinery. You may have seen in certain movies, and I recall from one of the Rolling Stones LPs, there was a turban of a land girl, and the land girl was essentially a symbol of the war effort and patriotism and utility during the Second World War. So that was hats off to the ladies and making use of headscarves, which is quite topical and typical. So whilst throughout the 1950s, hats became an essential aspect of French couture houses, and of course, yes, they were keen to re-establish their preeminence on the fashion stage. But sadly, by the 1960s, though, due to the rise of car ownership and the burgeoning youthquake, this ensured that hats were no longer needed, either as protection from weather or as a demarcation of class. So that's actually quite serious stuff. I never realized until I went into some research here that the wearing of hats was actually in part a display of the class that you belong or that you were born into. It's also keen to note that with the advent of industrialization and cars and the open top cars, the cabriolets, of course it made it difficult for one to wear hats unless you have Velcro attached to it. And there's been a renaissance since then in wearing hats, especially in the 21st century, thanks of course to a welcome boost in 2011 when the royal wedding of Prince William and the Duchess of Cambridge coincided with the 300th anniversary of the races at Ascot. That ensured a vintage year for hats. Now, with hats undoubtedly in the ascendant, what marks Britain out on the world stage is the sheer number of hats that they call their own. Now, this spirit of experimentation is the lifeblood of Britain's sartorial history. And, one may say, a heady combination of heritage techniques and eccentric style that have found their way into our 21st century wardrobes. Fascinating? No, fascinator.
Smile though your heart is aching. Smile even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through for you. Light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness. Although a tear may be ever so near, that's the time you must keep smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. Smile.
I hope you're smiling, but I can also sense there's a certain sense of melancholy. Yes, that is quite a touching tune. It's called Smile. Now, the reason I played it, there's some method to my madness here. That track Smile was written by Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin, to all and sundry, was the king of silent comedy. And of course, what distinguished him from the others, besides his oversized clothing and his short moustache, was the symbol of hats in Britain. Can anyone guess? Yes, come on. Charlie Chaplin and the bowler hat. There you go, guys. So the bowler hat, that was born in the Victorian age. And it was actually the brainchild of Lock & Company. So those of you that own a hat that is stamped by the Lock & Company, you're in good sitting. So they were actually fitting hats onto royal heads since the 1600s. But it was only in the 1840s that they commissioned Thomas and William Bowler to create a hard-wearing hat for farmers in the Norfolk area. The purpose was, as these farmers and the gamekeepers were riding about on their horses through their country estates, this hat was to protect them from the overhanging and overreaching branches. Go figure, guys. And we now have a hard hat in the industry. Amazing. Give me a bowler, somebody. So the practicality and strength of the hat caught on, and before long, no businessman was dressed without one. The hat was also a trademark of a number of characters. You remember, guys, John Steed in The Avengers? Yes, and of course, what was that cool, awesome chick, Purdy? Yes. And then, speaking of awesome ladies, Liza Minnelli from Cabaret. Oh, she's one of my favorites. She also displayed the use of the bowler hat, and she showed her extensive legs to much admiration from the men. Yes, that was the trademark of many characters. So from that beautiful track, it was actually called The Little Tramp, and that's where the track of Smile essentially started. And yes, it is actually from the silent era comedies. So we're moving along now from the bowler hat to let's go to the top hat. The top hat, as most of you have seen, is quite smarmy. It's actually very classic. It's very aristocratic as well. And that actually descended from the Sugarloaf hats, so those huge hats, and of course the tricorn ones. And the height of use of the top hat was actually from the 18th to the mid-20th century. Now, a notable pop culture that embraced the top hat is on a certain currency and a certain flag of the US. Yes, Uncle Sam wants you. Remember that? You picture that? Yeah, Uncle Sam wants you. And then most recently, we have Slash. from Guns N' Roses. Oh, killer musician, killer guitarist. All right, I'm getting carried away here. Let's drop down a little notch and speak about also one of a good-looking, very well worth wearing hat. It's called Panama. Now, the Panama hat is actually known and named for its point of export. But before I go into that, let's take a little ad break.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Grow! Yeah. Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.bstownmedia.co.za.
Harnessing the power of talk radio. Brandlive.co.za.
Hey Benang, how are you?
Hi Tuli, look so beautiful. Hey, long time no see. What happened to your skin, by the way? The last time I saw you, you had a lot of blemishes and breakouts. It was so terrible, man.
Wow, thanks for that, Benang. Luckily I discovered DMK. Have you heard of DMK?
DMK? Who are they?
DMK is a paramedical skincare brand that specializes in all skin conditions. Would you like their number?
Yes, please.
I know you're not good at numbers, so let me give you their website address because your skin looks terrible. It's www.dmkskincare.co.za.
Harnessing the power of talk radio. Brandlive.co.za.
Hi, Panamanians. You're back with Mitch Motian from Timeless Clothiers. Yes, I was talking about the Panama hat, and it's actually known for its point of export rather than its point of origin. Now, here's an interesting fact that you must chalk up. All genuine Panama hats are hand woven, not in Panama, but in Ecuador. And of course, they use a certain type of straw called toquila. Yeah, I know where you're thinking. It's not tequila, it's toquila straw. And this can be traced back to the 16th century when the Incas were first to weave hats using this toquila straw. Now, the hat bodies are meticulously hand-woven, refined, edged, and smooth. And it's mentioned that the true test of the quality lies in the number of weaves per square inch. And fewer than 100 is considered to be a lower quality, while some of the finest Panama hats can have 1,600 to 2,500 weaves per square inch. Guys, that resembles a woven linen material. No wonder that with your Panama hat, and an original, authentic one is, if you squash it and release it, it comes back to shape. There you go. So that is one of the key reasons behind the Panama. Now, let's move on. Pork pie. Anyone? No? Okay. A pork pie is a short crown brimmed hat with a flat top in either round or diamond crown shape. Now, the hat is primarily recognized as the hat of many jazz and blues musicians in New Orleans. Oh, now we're talking now. This is my kind of stuff. Jazz and blues. And yes, New Orleans. Its name, it's very interesting. Its name has a very literal meaning. So the jazz musicians who commonly worked as food sellers during the day, which gave them access to pie trays, they would, during the course of time, they would take the battered old dress hats, trim off the damaged outer brim, and re-block the hats over pie tins. Nowadays, various versions of the pork pie are available, with very flat crowns, rounded telescope-shaped crowns, diamond crowns, and of course brims ranging from formal wits to very stingy. And with Britain's rich street culture and subculture, their heritage has somewhat seen a subversive move in the hat industry. You'll notice that quite a lot of the ska music from the late 60s and 70s in Britain featured and favored the pork pie. Yeah. Oh, sounds killer, man. That is an amazing track. And how could I not include that? That track, guys, is called Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. So you see, yes, it is a terrific alignment here. And that is a composition by Charlie Mingus and very eloquently fretted over on the bass by Marcus Miller. He was the other musician I was fretting and trying to get his name on. So Marcus Miller, multi-Grammy Award winner, multi-talented, the musician's musician and player's player. What a remarkable person. All right, moving on. Time is not on my side. We will now look at a few more hats before we round up here, and I think all discussion must at some time focus on the cowboy hat. Now, this was the hat that was made famous by Stetson, and that's how the name got around in terms of wearing hats. Do you wear Stetson? Do you wear a Dobbs? Do you wear a Battersby? Those are all top brands in millinery. So Stetson made the first Boss of the Plains. I like that, Boss of the Plains. And that still remains synonymous with the Old West. Of course, when you talk about the Old West and hats and cowboy hats, what comes to mind? John Wayne. Yes, he was the actor starring in a gazillion Western movies. Next, moving right along, we have the Greek fisherman hat. And the Greek fisherman hat, yes, it actually started off in Athens. And it is a cap with a firm visor brim, loose fabric, and a braid between the visor and the crown. Now, John Lennon made the Greek fisherman quite popular in the 1960s. But guys, locally, can you recall who made the Greek fisherman hat popular? 3, 2, 1. Yes, the Archbishop Tutu. Yes, Cyril Ramaphosa. Yes, and quite a few of the SACP leaders. Because wearing the Greek fisherman hat, or it was called the captain's cap, of course, led to prominence in terms of who you were, in terms of the your echelons in the rank and file. Now, I'm saving the best for last, and the last two hats I'd like to discuss are the fedora and the trilby. The fedora is one of the most popular hats, and it's normally found on most heads. Actually, it started off as a woman's hat, and which is why when ladies do come into my store and they want to wear a hat, I always say a fedora looks so great on a woman. So the fedora is quite prevalent in modern pop culture and can be seen in numerous films and television shows. Think about it. Indiana Jones, Mad Men, yes, Michael Jackson also. Yes, he used the black fedora as his signature accessory in the 1990s. Going back a step, what about the Italian men in the Al Capone era? Yes, they used to wear the fedoras. So, good points to remember here on the fedora is that it is quite a complete accessory for your outfit, be it a blazer, jeans, jacket, suit. And of course, the fedora name actually emanates from a play of the same. And it was actually worn by women earlier, and it became a symbol of women's rights. Can you beat that? So, I mentioned the fedora, and then we have the trilby. And I actually omitted to talk about the Homburg, but let's quickly talk about what is the difference between the fedora and Homburg. Well, the fedora has a very low profile, narrow to wide brim, and usually sports a sharp taper in front with pinches on either side of the hat. While the Homburg sounds and appears to be more round, it has an oval shape, and when one looks at it from the front, they appear to be more rounded. Also, there's center crease on top, and the brims are curled up on the edges. Right, I've said a lot. I've hopefully entertained and educated in some aspects. And perchance you've got questions on the issue. So please, if you do have questions on the discussion, hit me up at Timeless Clothiers. You can via Instagram, WhatsApp, and let's promote ideas, and I'm open to it. And on that note, we will end with another track. And at this stage, all I can say is adios, amigos.